Hello and welcome. I'm Nathan Newbrough, CEO of the Colorado Springs Philharmonic, joined by our associate conductor Thomas Wilson, and we are here at Memorial Hospital North Campus because UC Health is a very big partner with the Philharmonic this year, sponsoring concerts, but also a big part of the project called Philharmonic Cares. You can find out more about that on our website at csphilharmonic.org/cares. Today we're talking about Scheherazade. We're talking about the very first of the Al and Lee Bittner Vanguard performances this season. It comes up on October 17th, and the focus is Scheherazade. Now, a word about our Vanguard performances. These are an opportunity to go deeper inside the music. So the entire night is dedicated to a singular piece or a singular style of music. And so this time it's Scheherazade. The first half will be sort of a live documentary performed on stage. And the second half of the concert will be the piece played through in its entirety. Some of these we've actually licensed from the Chicago Symphony, where they've developed all of the content, but some of them we've developed on our own, and this is one of those. Thomas, you're the author of this particular night, and you're also the conductor for this.
And so, double duty, yes.
So talk to us about what that's like, and what's your plan?
Right, well, you know, it all has to come from the piece itself. And I choose pieces that I think have an interesting story, a compelling story, and this one certainly does. Here we have this tale that's been around for centuries. The earliest scraps from 1001 Nights are probably from about 700, 800. So that's a long time, and then this amazing set of stories is built up over time. Different countries added stories to it. It came into Europe. It still wasn't 1001, so they kept adding. The French added a lot, surprisingly, and so we end up with this 1001 Nights, and then it makes its way to Russia, and Rimsky-Korsakov decides to write a piece. And there had only been a couple attempts by composers to write anything having to do with 1001 Nights. Rimsky-Korsakov did it right, and this is the definitive work inspired by that wonderful little bit of fiction.
And so for the creator of a night like this is way out of the norm for our concert format. Typically you'll have a couple of pieces and then intermission and then another long piece to finish the night. This is way out of the norm. So what is this kind of experience like for the conductor and the musicians on stage?
Well, for us, even for seasoned musicians, when I've done this level of research, they're learning new things about this piece that they've probably played a dozen or more times. And so it's really actually very exciting to be able to go much deeper into the music. So for a first-time concert goer, if they're taking in one of these concerts, they get all the great information up front. They really understand the piece the very first time they hear it, and it means so much more. So like last season when we did Mozart's Requiem, you know, all this new information that even the orchestra had no idea went into the creation of that piece, and then we're playing it on the second half, and it's like, wow, it really does. It does mean more when you understand it better.
I believe a lot of our audience members will be surprised by some of what they hear that night. Give us a sneak preview. What was surprising to you? Any particular detail of Scheherazade's or Rimsky-Korsakov's work that was surprising to you in your research?
What amazes me most, he didn't actually talk about this. He didn't claim it openly because there was a real concern among composers. They didn't want to write anything that was just programmatic, like just blatantly telling a story. They wanted to write a really great orchestral piece, and then if it hinted at this, great. But he did something that not only tells the story in a way of 1001 Nights, and certainly the story of Scheherazade, but he kind of went one above, I think. In the format, it's always Scheherazade telling stories and the Sultan listening, and the stories are sort of isolated. So there's these little connecting points, but they don't really mix up very well. The way Rimsky-Korsakov tells it, it's Scheherazade putting herself and the Sultan into some of these stories because he's changing melodies. He's using melodic material to tell these other stories. So all the female characters are based on Scheherazade, all the male characters are based on Sultan, and it makes it a much more interesting experience because now they're putting she's putting herself and the Sultan into this, and it makes much more sense in the end. You know, it's hard for us to say, oh well, you know, here's this woman telling these stories, and initially the Sultan's going to kill her after one night, and then he decides, okay, this is a pretty good story, and then eventually he says, okay, I won't kill you. It's much more interesting if she's weaving the stories this way, it makes sense in the end that he not only acquiesces, but he falls in love with her, and they live happily ever after.
Well, there's your intro. There's your intro, people. We will see you there, October 17th at the Pikes Peak Center. The music of Scheherazade, authored by none other than our own associate conductor, Thomas Wilson, and performed by the musicians of the Colorado Springs Philharmonic. We will see you there. If you want to know more about the Colorado Springs Philharmonic, go to csphilharmonic.org. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or many, many other places. Thanks very much.